When I was a child, my mother always made turkey rice soup from our leftover turkey after Thanksgiving. Today, of course, we only have turkey a couple of times a year, so I've converted that recipe to a chicken rice soup recipe. And today I'm going to show you how I make it. So we're going to start by making the broth. And for that, I'm going to use rotisserie chickens. I like rotisserie chickens because they're, first of all, they're less expensive. Today, which is early 2023, you can still buy a rotisserie chicken for $4.99 at either Costco or Sam's. They're already cooked, so you don't have to worry about cooking them. And I like the nice brown color that you end up giving the bouillon when you use these. And so what I'm going to do is just take the meat off of this, and I'm going to set some of the meat aside, which we're going to add to the soup later. And then the bones and a little bit of the meat is going to go into the pot, which I'm going to cover with water. And that's going to go on the stove. I'm going to bring the water to a boil, and then turn it down to a simmer, and let it cook for 2 or 3 hours until it takes on a nice flavor for the broth. The chicken broth has now been simmering for about 3 hours, and I've removed it from the stove, and I'm just going to use a slotted spoon to remove all of the bones. And the other thing that we need to remove is the chicken fat. During the simmering process, a lot of the fat has rendered off of the skin, and as it's mixed in with this broth. And if you don't get that out, the soup is going to end up with sort of a greasy flavor. So we can simply let this sit for a few minutes, and all of the fat will come to the top. And you can use a spoon to skim the fat off. But I always find that it's difficult to remove it this way. And I think it's a lot easier if we put this in the refrigerator, let it chill overnight, and then the next morning it's going to be a lot easier to see the fat and get it off of the top of the broth. So now the broth has been in the refrigerator overnight, and you can see that layer of fat has formed and it's solidified, and it's going to be very easy to remove. I can just scrape it off with a spoon. If you want to save the fat, you can set it aside and use it as a substitute for butter to saute vegetables or other things, or if not, just discard it. And then you can see that once the fat is removed, you just have this very nice gelatinous broth that's remaining, which is just going to make a great base for our soup. Now, after I removed the bones from the pan, I left quite a bit of room so I can add some additional stock. And you can use canned stock, the stock that comes in a carton, but I'm going to use a concentrate that's called Better Than Bouillon. It comes in a little jar like this. It comes in several different flavors. They make it in a roast beef. They have roasted garlic, a vegetable bouillon, but I'm going to use the chicken bouillon. And all you do is scoop a little bit of this out and put it in a bowl like this, and then just add warm water and stir it up, and then you pour it into the pan, and that's going to bring it up so I have a little bit more stock to work with. And now we want to add some vegetables. I'm going to use carrots, celery, and onion. The carrots I'm just going to slice thinly, and the same with the celery. And then the onion I'm going to give a coarse chop to. And then the vegetables I'm just going to add to the broth. And I'm going to return this to the stove since the vegetables are raw. I'm going to put them on the stove and let them simmer for about 30 minutes, just long enough that they're not absolutely raw, but I still like them a little bit crisp. Now I'm going to cut up the chicken that I set aside into small pieces, and that's going to be added to the broth. Now to finish the soup, I've just put a little rice that I've pre-cooked into a bowl, and I'm going to spoon the broth over the rice. And the reason I do it this way is because I found that if you try to cook the rice in the broth, you end up either putting too much rice in or too little rice in. And moreover, if you do it ahead of time, if the broth is hot, the rice just continues to cook. So I like to pre-cook the rice, add it to the bowl, and then add the broth on top. Now, as a little extra bonus, in addition to, if you keep it separate like this, in addition to making chicken rice soup, if you have some noodles and just add the noodles in the bowl and then do the same thing, you can actually end up with chicken noodle soup. And either way you do it, I think you're going to find it easy and quite delicious soup to make.